Hi, this is Dwight Spencer, one of the Connections and Community guys. I'm joined by other Connection and Community guy, Maddox, and you're listening to For the Love of Creatives, a podcast about the intersection of creativity and community. Today, we are joined by our featured guest, Andrea Holmes, a McKinney-based muralist. She's based in Texas. She's working all over the world. You may have seen some of her work. She's known as the Bird Lady, and she's the host of Birdtober. And there are a lot of fun and interesting facts about Andrea, but who better to tell us a little bit about who she is than Andrea Holmes herself? Take it away, Andrea.
Hi, how are you guys?
Great.
I good. I am Andrea Holmes, and I am a mural artist. I've been doing those for about 5 years, but I've been a painter for over the past 15 years, and I've always been an art student, and I just thought it couldn't be a real job, and I went into other avenues of work. But over time, I have figured it out, and now I feel like I can say that I'm a successful full-time artist. I've been doing art full-time for the past 8 years, which feels like a big accomplishment. And I've am the co-author of Art Makes Magic with my friend Beth Fields, and that is about being a fairy art mother and inspiring other artists and being a mentor. And it has practical tips, and it really talks about how there's different pathways up the mountain for being an artist. It's not like a doctor where you do this, this, and this, and now you're a doctor. Art's not that kind of journey. So I also do 60-second bad portraits, which is just a really fun, literally just a 1 minute quick doodle of someone, and those have been really great and successful. And I am on the board of Millhouse, which is a creative center that empowers women to flourish here in McKinney. I'm a part of Leadership McKinney, so I'm very active in a lot of things. I'm also a mom, my daughter, and I have a little Muppet that runs around the house. He is a little grumpy Brussels Griffin, and so that's me in a nutshell.
You are a woman of accomplishment, to be a single mom and a pet, and to make your living to support you and your daughter with your art is quite an achievement.
It is. And I have to remember that it is a lot of times when you're in things, you you don't see what you've accomplished and what how far you've come. And so to not only be an artist and making ends meet and paying bills and things like that, but to actually be flourishing and getting to travel all over the world and do extraordinary things is it's more than I could have ever dreamed of or thought possible, truly.
I just want to say, Andrea, that, we at this point with the podcast have had conversations with just shy of 40 um, creatives now, not all artists, but all creatives. And you are right up there at the top of a very, very tiny percentage who actually do support themselves fully with their craft. So I just want to drive that home, that's quite an accomplishment.
Thank you. I think I put this into the book, but I wrote about you just don't really know what how people are doing what they're doing. Do they have a spouse? Do they have parents or a trust fund? Or, how I just would always look at other artists as I have been growing and just being like, how do they do it? And but you just don't know what their backstory is and how are they making sales? Maybe they have a father who was able to help them get into the art world or, do things with them. Or maybe they have a husband that helps them do all the business side. You just have no idea what kind of support systems people have. Um, and so it to run my own business and successfully is pretty cool. And I do wear that with pride because I've worked very hard at it. And I I'm grateful for every bit of the crazy things that I've been through to get me here.
Well,
Well,
and I also,
and
without you, oh, go ahead, Dwight.
well, I was just going to say that you brought up how hard it is to think of anything in a fashion that's other than linear. You know, how when you're involved in something, you're so close to it, you can't really appreciate the magnitude of what it took to get to that point. What was it like when you were first having, you know, those inklings toward, you know, maybe possibly doing something with art? I mean, what were those thoughts and feelings like?
So I always wanted to be an artist, but I just didn't think it was viable. And that, you know, the starving artist mentality, all of that. And so I went into school for more biology, zoology, like veterinarian type thing. And then I actually worked at a veterinarian clinic and realized quickly, I was like, oh, this isn't for me. This is not all the puppies and kittens and all the love and warm fuzzies that I was hoping it would be. And so I had always been taking art classes on the side as my electives, things like that, just because I truly enjoyed it. And I actually didn't start painting until I graduated college. I had a professor that said, you know, you guys don't even know how to draw. We need to start with the basics. And so I dropped it. So I eventually started taking painting classes. Um, After, you know, I had graduated, I couldn't find a job in art. I have an arts and technology degree. I was like, I'm going to work for Pixar. And but then it was like 2009. You know, it was really hard to find a job, so I was working in catering. I worked at a as a server in a restaurant. I worked part-time in an art gallery, and then I worked for a TV show called Cheaters. And so I just had all this modge podge, and then I could just feel my creative soul dying, and I wanted to, you know, nurture it. So I took classes on the side. Um, and then I entered into an art show, and they were like, you don't even have hangers on here. Go to this art gallery. I got a job at the art gallery. And then I was able to quit all of the other jobs. It was a big pay cut, a huge pay cut. But I knew that it was the right choice. It was probably one of the better choices that I've made. That and getting divorced was to go from, you know, making lots of money, um, especially when I was working at the catering job. I became a manager, and like they gave me like paid for my gas, and I had, you know, it was a lot of money, a lot of stress, but a lot of money. But then to find this art job in an art gallery that it was like almost half of a pay cut. But I had a husband at that point, and so I could make that decision, and I did. And I just grew through working at that job. I learned so much information about the art world and meeting other artists and, you know, working on the large format printing machines to do like canvas prints, G clays, working in a gallery, you know, how do you price stuff, all of that. It was so valuable. So, you know, you can see this little path that I was carving out. And then I started doing art shows and art festivals. I started teaching classes, um, and then eventually, I I started to be an artist full time. The gallery that I was working with ended up closing, and so I had had my daughter at that point. She was about a year and a half old, and it was like, do you put her in daycare? And then I could only work part time, and it was like Monday through Wednesday. Who's hiring for Monday through Wednesday? Nobody. Um, and so I decided to stay home. And again, I had the ability to do that because I had someone to support me at that point. And um, I worked on my art, and I was just taking a lot of commissions and doing daily projects like you know, a 30-day art challenge, then which led to Birdtober and doing that every year. And this will be my 7th year. And um, and then I started getting into more things. So it just was this long pathway. So art for me has just always been there. And the more that I got into it, I was like, oh, like there is money here in art. And people spend billions of dollars in art like that, you know, that it's a huge industry. And when you really look around and see how much art really touches everything. Hold on, my dog. This is the one thing I didn't think of. He does this every time I was looking for this squeaky toy because he brings it out every time I'm on a Zoom call. But I just I just and I lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry. You tried to
You,
prepare me for this.
you know, there was something that you said earlier. I want to track back a little bit. I'm still kind of hanging on you do art full time because it's such a big deal. Everything we talk about is about that intersection of community and creativity. And I know that you'd get commissioned work to do murals where you have to travel,
Mm-hmm.
which lets me know that in order to do that and be a single mom, you have to have quite a support system to
I
be able
do.
to do that. And that's a beautiful example of how community impacts our creative life. You couldn't do that if you didn't have the support community.
Mm-mm. There are times where she's with her dad, so I can plan like, okay, she's going to be with her dad. This is a week I can do something, so let's plan for that. Or grandma helps out, and then I have a trip coming up that my sister-in-law is going to come help out. So I really do have a support system, and for me, one of my hugest pillars of where I get my strength from is from friends and family and relationships. I mean, I don't think I would have made it through these past 5 years. They've been very turbulent. Now, my career has grown exponentially, and it's been wonderful. But at the same time, my personal life has just been chaos and turbulence the whole time. But people wouldn't know that, and uh, um, but it's just been crazy. And without those friends that especially my friends that I've surrounded myself with, uh, I can't imagine getting through any of it. I don't know how people do it without those kinds of connections.
Mm, well
What a
said,
gift.
Andrea. We love that. We are so all about people magic, and you're describing a variation of people magic.
Yeah. Relationships are so important, even through business, right? Connections, or sometimes called networking, which is, an ugly word for
Yeah,
artists a lot
we
of
don't
times.
use
We,
But
we
we
to
don't
don't
use
me,
use
the
the
N
N
word.
word in our
yeah,
house.
it really is relationships is what it truly is. With a lot of the businesses here in downtown McKinney, I worked down here. I built relationships in that way. People trusted me, and then I was able to start doing projects down here. People saw my caliber of work. I'm easy to work with. Sit and work in someone's business. If you're painting a mural, you're there for like a week or more, and you talk to these people and you learn about their life. And then even afterwards, I continue to go back to these places and visit their restaurants or shops, and continue to have relationships with them because you genuinely like them and you're invested and you're cheering them on and they're cheering you on. And I especially love that here in McKinney. And I've even going to Hawaii, and that was like a trip of a lifetime. And only because of I'd made a project, which is the 100 bird mural project. It's based off of a painting project that I had done, which was 100 bird paintings. Um, and I wanted to figure out how to paint what I wanted to paint, versus like signs and billboards for businesses, and really do art murals. And this was my solution. But these people reached out from Hawaii and they invited me in. They let me stay in one of their Airbnbs. They had ceremonies and an art meet the artist night where they all had home cooked food, and I learned how to do leis. And like we were sitting around a table and making leis together with leaves. And I mean to travel across the world or several thousand miles and be somewhere for just 8 days, and then immediately you have a connection with
Mm.
someone. And I think that is just universal. And that's a huge part of this project, is for me to have a sense of awe and wonder and experience the world in this way. But it's really also about connecting with people all over the world, because when you get into these small towns or places, or you kind of get a slice of life moment, it's really beautiful, and you realize through in spite of all the chaos and drama that you see online and everything, that people are quite wonderful and loving and caring, and they're living their lives, and it can be a really good place, as much as it can be a bad place. And I really create my art, for me to have joy, because life is crazy and it brings me joy, and I want to bring that to other people through my artwork with the bright colorful things. And like birds, they're just like jewels to me. They come in a variety of sizes, shapes, colors. It's just an endless subject matter to me. um, so to be able to do that and spread that joy throughout the world and make those connections and travel and have awe and wonder, I mean, it's quite incredible, and I feel very lucky that I am able to do it, because I know a lot of people everybody can work hard, right? But not everybody gets these opportunities. So um, a lot of hard work and a little bit of luck.
Great.
There's something very unique about what you do as an artist. I'm sitting, my mind is percolating here, and I'm thinking about how most artists paint on canvases, or and probably maybe a small percentage of what they do is commissioned work. Most of it's what we call spec work. But as a muralist, you can't just really go out and paint a wall. I mean, I guess graffiti happens all the time, but that's not what you do. It's so pretty much all of your murals have to be commissioned work, right?
I do approach places a lot of times, working with cities, or there's grants and things available. But there are. It's not just like whatever I want to do. They are adding in the ingredients. So I think of this like a kind of like I'm building a recipe. And for me, especially with this bird project, it's my only thing is it needs to have a bird in it. But each new location, each new person that I work with gets to add in the ingredients, and I get to build something cool based off of that. And it'll be unique because of that. And I think it'll have a lot of flavor and joy put into it, because I'm working on it with other people. And when you collaborate, you build something better, because it's not just you and in your own space. It gives you new ideas. It gives you creative restrictions. And I think because of that, I create better work.
That's beautiful. Um, I'm curious, what have you had a chance to discover that was surprising in any of this work or in your travels?
uh it's so funny. The more money that I make, the easier it feels, which sounds so awful. And I'm
Mm.
sure that's like an infuriating thing to say, but I don't know if it's because I feel like maybe I have finally, like, I'm really in a place that I should be, like I have found my passion. I'm, like this, so that it feels easy, because I'm not fighting against something, or trying to be something I'm not, or trying to fit into a category that I'm not. But and if I could go back and tell myself, like, hey, little baby artist Andrea, this is what you're going to be doing, and this is how much people are going to pay you, my mind would just be like, like I would never. I i wanted it to be good, but I didn't think it could be this good, and that things could surpass my expectations is probably the biggest thing that I just didn't see coming. um and so, but I've been very stubborn throughout all of this, and just very persistent, um, and willing to pivot. And those were probably the things that you know, that have helped me grow and be able to be successful is just being just a, I'm a ram, Aries ram, and I'm an ox in the Chinese one. I think I'm just like, I'm steadfast. I just kind of trudge through things, um, the grit factor. But I wanted it. I want to be an artist. I want the things that come along with it. I eat, breathe, sleep, art. I don't know. It's just like it's all art all the time. I can't imagine people who don't have art in their lives. Like, what is that even like? Or even like the community that art brings. Like, you don't have those people in your life. Like, what? No wonder everybody's so sad.
There is something quite magical about being surrounded by other creative people. I've been writing about it lately. Searched for my people my whole life, and just in the last couple of years, in probably the last stages of my life, I have found my people, and it's been phenomenal. You were talking about never dreaming that you'd get paid what you get paid. I had a mentor sometime not too long ago say to not just me, but a group of people that were creating, and he said, don't ever feel bad about making money. Don't ever feel embarrassed or ashamed or bad about making money, because he said what you do changes the world.
Hmm.
What you do contributes to humanity in a major way. Now, they may not really realize it like that, but that doesn't matter. It contributes. And the more money you have, the more people you can help, the more people you can touch, the more murals you can paint, you know?
Yeah,
And it makes sense. We should never ever feel ashamed of getting money for our work, because
it has.
it's the enabling thing that lets us bring more joy into the world.
Yeah, it has extreme value. It truly does. And I, you don't think about it, but companies like Starbucks, they paid me. I'm going to use real numbers because as an artist and when I was trying to figure things out, I love to hear people's real numbers, but it was like, $20,000 to work on a project for them. Like they're investing that. Uptown Dallas, it's like over a $60,000 project. Um, so these people, these big corporations with lots of money and the ability to research, they're investing in art. And that says a lot. The city of McKinney is investing a lot of money in art. They added another $160,000 to their arts commission to be able to give out in grants. That says so much. And it's really a feather in someone's cap to be able to invest in art, because you're not just surviving, you're thriving. And that's something unique to humans, is to create art, and express ourselves this way. And I think it's such a wonderful thing. And I was talking to my brother the other day, and I have said this in one of my workshop that I do. It's a goal workshop. Every year I do this. I keep thinking about giving it up, but I don't think I ever will, because it's invaluable to me. It's like a recap of your year, and then you look into the next year. And at one, I said, I was like, I want to make $100,000 as an artist. And I remember people being like, "What? Like that's crazy." But I was like, I'm just putting that out there, and I did it. And then I was talking to my brother the other day, and I was like, I want to make $100,000 in a mural. And he's like, well, you can make $100,000 in a year. And I said, no, in one mural. And he was like, what? And I was like, I just put in crazy things out there, and it happens. So I'm sure this is like a weird manifestation or type thing, or I don't know, you're putting it out into the universe, or you're setting a goal, and because you haven't set limitations on yourself, you look at things in different ways. You try to figure out that problem in a different way so that you can achieve it. Because if you're like, well, I only can make this much as an artist, but if you limit yourself, then that's where you're going to stay. So I like to give myself these like absurd challenges, or at the time they seem absurd, to me, where I'm just like, that's crazy. But it's out there, and people are paying money for art. Like it has value. It's an investment. It's not a cost. It truly adds to people's lives. They crave it. They need it. So I really just and not that it's about the money, but for me, it's like, what does $100,000 mural look like? Is that a giant building that I get to paint on where like a whole city gets to see it? Like, isn't that so cool that I could leave that kind of mark in the world and you know affect someone's life in a way where they see that mural and maybe it invokes a feeling of joy or positivity, or if I could do that in some way, um, it's such a it's I want to do it. I want to
I
do
love
crazy
your
things like that.
attitude. Love, love, love your attitude. And it's very inspiring. And I just want to say, yes, it's very much about manifesting. And B, there is nothing weird or crazy about it.
Right.
Thanks.
Well, and let's not overlook, just because we're talking about manifesting. I'd say a key ingredient is that determination that you spoke of. I mean, you have put in the hard work. You've applied grit, and that's as much a part of that formula for manifestation as just setting the crazy goal.
Yes, I think so. And I actively pursue like these things. Like I don't just set it out into the universe and be like, okay, I'm ready. I talk to people, I reach out, I look for opportunities, and I'm planting seeds all the time in order to grow. And so I think it's you just never know what's around the corner for you. And especially if you just keep applying yourself, keep showing up to the easel, keep, keep working at it. And the next part is talking about it, talking about what you do.
Yes.
This
Yes.
is one of my biggest components of, mastering your self promotion is so key for artists and creatives, because you make these wonderful things, and if you don't talk about them or show them to people or share them, then it's just lost. And I think it adds real value to people. So you have to do the other part of the work, of the marketing,
Right.
of the promoting what you're doing, because it's it's good. We need more good things in the world.
You have to wear the entrepreneur's hat so you can wear the artist hat.
Yes. And there is no shame, in the book that I wrote with my friend Beth. She has a full-time job, and she's like waiting to retire, but she has a pension that she's like working towards. And she didn't go to art school, and she, didn't have a studio outside of her house. That has value too, where you're creating art, just for yourself, and things like that. Like, it doesn't not everybody needs to be a full-time artist, right? Um, but I think art still has immense value, even if it's just for the artist. But I want people to share it because I want to see it.
Right. And I can appreciate how when you're creating art, it scratches an itch, it fulfills a need. Like I understand that there is so much that we don't know about how it is that we're built. We know that we need nutrition. We know that we need sunlight. We know that we need to have relationships. We're discovering it's essential for making sure that we don't suffer from a host of ailments, including dementia. But art probably factors in there pretty highly, and just because it hasn't been quantified, it's something that we should probably be diligent about pursuing.
Truly.
And
I'm reading this book called Joyful, and it starts off talking about, and I can't remember the town or the people or the players or anything, but it talks about this town that is really impoverished. There's a lot of crime, and then the mayor comes in and he paints this whole building, everything except for the windows, orange, like this bright, vibrant orange. And he starts this initiative where they start painting entire buildings, even ones for the city, in these bright, wonderful colors and patterns and things. And then it decreased crime. People that were afraid to open up their shops were starting to open up again. It brought in tourists, and it revitalized the whole town. That is the power of art. Like,
He was
um,
brilliant, wasn't he?
It was so brilliant. And who would have thought a coat of paint would make such a big difference? But it truly does. Your environment makes a big difference, and who you are and how you respond to the world. And so I think that's again where these artists are coming into play. Like, even if it's a happy little sticker that makes somebody's day and it adds that little dose of joy, or if it's a book or a poem, or all these things add value and make life better. And I think it's like the fight of good versus evil, and like I feel like art is just on the side of good, and that it's such a it's kind of a responsibility to get it out there and put good things into the world, um and be human.
It's difficult to really express the value of art. I have about 3 months ago started painting, and almost nobody's seen anything that I'm painting except for Dwight. A couple of people have been in the house.
Well,
I'm
there's one of
painting
yours over your
in the
shoulder.
I'm well, yeah, that I painted probably 8 or 9 years ago. But yes, I painted that colorful thing right there on the wall. But um, I went for several years that painting, and I'm painting again. And I'm painting in the dining room, so the whole second floor of the house is just like a studio, and it looks destroyed. There's shit everywhere, and it's just like, and it is amazing to me how much this is just contributing to my soul. It's hard to really express or explain, but there's just something real magical. There's an element of play to it that just really is just completely magical. I don't think I realized how much I wasn't playing until I started playing in the paint. I was a little intimidated at first and kind of afraid to jump in and get started, and then finally I did, and now I'm just playing and just having just this amazing time, and it doesn't even really matter if I ever create anything that's worthy of even looking at. It's just yeah, hard to describe.
Well,
And,
I know. I know what you're talking about. Yeah. I do I have found it hard to make art just for myself or for fun. It feels very much like a job now for painting. Um, but like I've started doing things like making pottery or crocheting, like I think it's like aragumi. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but like the little animals and stuff, where it's like this creativity or this like need to make things, even if it's like baking in the kitchen or cooking, or like we like have this inner need to create things. And I think again it's part of our souls to do this. And um I think that's really just what's wrong with the world, is that people are just not being creative enough.
I
It
think
must
so
inspire
too.
them to make things.
We're not making time for it. We're all just, well, there's a busyness epidemic right now. I talk
Mhm.
about it a lot, you know, and people are sucked into it. It's like an addiction. They're addicted to busyness, and there's a whole psychological thing behind it. But um, yeah, I agree with you. I think that I've been saying for some time now, it's my belief that creatives are the group of people that have the power to heal humanity.
Oh yeah.
If not us, who? We're the innovators, we're the creators, we're the innovators, we're the problem solvers. If not us, who will come up with a plan to heal humanity? Now, whether we'll step up and do that or not remains to be seen. But I do believe that we hold the power.
Yeah, I think that is so true. I think you're right. Like the healing part of it, and the good versus evil kind of thing, where a lot of people find, if I'm not valuable, if I'm not productive, um, making art seems, like it's a waste of time, because even if you're, and that's for me is a big struggle. If I'm not making this for money, then it's a waste of time. I should be working on all this long to-do list of things that I need to be doing, um, but I get cranky when I'm not creative and having fun, and it like you just feel off when that isn't happening in your life, or I do. And even I do things like creative procrastination, where I'll be like, well, I'm just going to make this cake. and not work on that painting, or I'm going to crochet this when there's a long list of things where I should be being productive, but that list will never end, right? We have
Right.
to take these mental breaks and refuel.
You just have
Um,
to set the list aside for a little while and get your time in. The first time I started painting, I made myself the promise that I would never ever pay a bill with painting money. Never.
really? Why?
That because I took another hobby that I loved at one point in time and tried to make it into a business, and it ruined it for me.
Ah,
It
yeah.
took all the joy out of it, and it was just this have to crank out stuff. And I had a love for photography for many years, and then I shot for a couple of years professionally, and that was many years ago. And I haven't touched photography in almost 2 decades, or maybe it has been about 2 decades, because it ruined it. So when I started painting, I said, I'm not saying I won't sell a painting, but I will never ever plan to pay bills of any sort. If I sell a painting, then I'm going to the mall to buy myself something with that money. It's never going to be about, paying bills. And I'm
Huh,
glad that I've stuck to that, because the painting is just for my own joy. And
yeah.
I thought I've told Dwight, I wonder what I do when I have so many canvases that I can't store them anymore. And I said, I'll just start donating them to nonprofit organizations that can auction them off or something. If I get good enough to warrant that. Right now, I don't think that, you could probably put my paintings in an auction and get much for them.
That painting
I'm,
on your
I'm,
wall says otherwise. So,
oh, well, thank you. I'm a little rusty. I haven't painted anything like that in a long time, but I'm definitely having fun. So
immediately
I
in my
wanted,
head, I was like, what if you combined your photography with your painting and you painted your photographs, or I don't know. I mean,
I'm already thinking about that. I've got kind of a plan that I'm going to work on. I've started doing image transfer on gels.
that's what I'm talking about.
And I think I'm going to do my own photos rather than just something that I pull out of a magazine or something. We'll see. I want to direct us for a minute because we got about maybe 15 minutes left. I want to direct us back to community, and I want to hear a little bit more specifically about your experience of how your creative life and your journey, your business, what role community plays in that, and how you benefit from it, and why it's so important. Because we can't drive that home enough. There's so many creatives that work in isolation and they don't have the power of community behind them. And I don't get it.
Yeah. Well, now that I'm a full-time artist, to speak on isolation, I spend my most of my day alone. Um, so that's quite different. I'm actually very extroverted and I love talking to people, and so to be in this like little vacuum of in my own space where I'm like, I don't have anybody to chit chat with. So that means like I have found more value, and like I need to invest in relationships and things in community because I don't have that during the day. Some people are like peopled out because they work all day and they're surrounded by people, and then by the time they get home they're like, ugh, like enough. But I'm the opposite. I am like, people come. I need to talk to you. And I just remember, I really, my art community, I didn't really find it until college, and I really enjoyed calling college, and there was a great art community there, I ended up working at the gallery there. Um, and so I really found community there. And then when I moved to Anna and I lived there for 20 years, it was such a small town, there was no art community. There was nothing. Like they didn't have any public art, there was no art galleries, no place to gather. No, it was just like a ghost town for artists. And so
You were living in hell.
I know I was like, ugh. But yeah, I worked in Dallas, so in between there, I found McKinney, and I started going to McKinney Creative Community, and that was a gathering of artists and creatives, and I really enjoyed that. And then I ended up running that for several years, um, and I just really enjoyed the community, and especially here in McKinney. Like I have never since like experienced this type of community where it's you walk into downtown and you're like, hey Bob, hey Sue, how's your family? It was just like you saw each other, you knew each other, and it wasn't so like you dart out of your house, put the trash cans out, and you come back in. Like people are out here walking around, and they're involved in the community, they're doing things, there's events. I just never experienced that. And so I just kind of really dug my claws in. So when that gallery closed, I was like, no, I don't want to leave here. Like this is where I have found my people, and just inspiring and kind and encouraging. And I have found that in Dallas too, through the creative mornings. And that has been really wonderful. And again, like I'm really finding that there's community everywhere, but it is about finding your people and putting yourself out there, and to be able to talk shop with other artists and talk about your woes or like problems that you're working on, and to have a perspective from someone else, or they might have already done what you're trying to do and they can tell you the shortcut, or and just to have those friendships, um, and to feel seen.
Mhm.
Because when I hang out with like certain people and they're like business, 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 and you're just like, when can I talk about birds or painting or like it's these are your people, and you like bubble up with excitement and joy when you get to connect in these ways. And so to find that community, I mean, I- it's just once you experience it, you don't want to give it up. Like
Oh
you
my God,
you
it's a
go out of
game
your way.
changer.
You will drive 40 miles to another town to connect with people. Like it's it's it fills you up in a way that so many things can't.
I mean,
Yeah.
everything we do is about creatives and creativity, and not just because professionally it's part of what we're doing, but personally, we've surrounded ourselves, all of our friends now are creatives, and we go to art stuff multiple times a week.
Yeah, it's good.
You talked about being in isolation during the day and having to get your people needs met. That is actually to me better than being the person who works with people all day, because they don't get to pick who they work with all day long.
That's
But they're
true.
exhausted and they're done with people at the end of the day, and then they don't want to be out. And I think it's much better the way you're describing it, because when you do get out, you get to pick and choose who you want to hang out with and do as much or as little as you want. It's not this, well, I got to be with these assholes for 8 hours.
Yeah, very true. That's very true. Yeah, I've done my time of hanging out with assholes for 8 hours, for sure. And I think you're right. I didn't really. I thought I was like, oh, I'm lonely all day long, but I think you have put a new perspective on that for me. I get to choose the people that I hang out with, and that's a
A, a beautiful thing.
beautiful thing.
Yeah, and as much or little as you like.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
truly. Yeah, I can't say enough for my friendships and the people that I have surrounded myself with. They're truly a blessing.
I
Yeah,
agree.
I have to say, we always feel lifted in your presence, and there's something to be said about how those murals that you leave are like a piece of yourself. They're a legacy. And, I smile anytime I walk past, and even if it's just a little bird, I think, oh, that might be one of Andrea's.
Yes, birds are the best marketing tool I have come up with, because anytime anybody sees a bird, they're like, "Oh, Andrea."
Yeah, you've kind of gotten a reputation. It's part of your branding.
It really is. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
On your shirt. Let's see right here. Bird
Hmm.
as a paintbrush. Like, yeah,
We recently decided to incorporate tiny little hot pink rubber duckies as our brand.
I love those.
And yeah, we've got a bunch of them and we give them away wherever we go. And yeah, they get attention for sure.
Hmm. Yeah. A little joyful thing.
Yep, yep. Well, Dwight, do you want to ask Andrea our
All right.
big question? We save a big question for the end.
Yeah. No, no, Maddox. Oh, why don't you deliver the big question?
Me? Okay, all right. This is the big question of the hour. In your current creative life, what is the biggest pain point? That challenge that, if solved, would be a game changer for your creative journey.
As time, juggling everything, being a mom, being a daughter. My mom is 76 and I have to take care of her. Being an entrepreneur. So just really juggling everything. I sometimes joke, I'm like, I wish I had a wife at home that was taking care of things at home or whatever, like those kinds of things where it's the trying to do everything is probably my biggest pain point. And you can't juggle everything well all the time, right? Like you can't be spinning all plates all the time, or I can't. I have not figured it out. Um, so it always seems like something is if you're focusing on one thing, then other things kind of fall off, and then that you're constantly trying to have to shift on that. And even like thinking about hiring help. So if I hired help to do either watching my child or, I feel like I'm losing something, or like helping in my business, and that, hiring people and managing people is just like a whole other thing, right? Um, so yeah, definitely my biggest pain point is not having enough time or energy. I I would, I try to be good about caffeine consumption and things like that, but I'm tired, y'all. I'm so tired. So yeah, if I could have more energy and more time, that would be great, to do all the things, but we don't, right? This life is finite, like it is not infinite, finite. Um, and I'm trying to do as much with the time that I have, that I can, because you don't, you never know how things are going to be. It's the Memento Mori is like a big thing for me, which means remember you must die. And it sounds very dark and morbid, but truly for me that, especially over the past few years, has made a big impact on how I choose to live my life, um, and how I'm going to live every day. I think it's really important to spend our time the best way that we can. And if things are not working out for you, or, I'm not just saying like a bad day, but if something continues to be a problem for you, change it. It's scary. Like I said earlier, there were things in my life where jumping from a high paying job to a low paying job, or getting a divorce, or these things that seem so hard, but they are creating so much stress and pressure for you. And then you end up leaving and doing something different, and it ends up being better than you could ever imagine. And I truly believe that if you if you set out like 6 months or a year on a calendar and you're still complaining about something, change it. Make the
Yeah.
change.
I,
It's
I
hard,
think
but
that's
do it.
like words of complete wisdom, Andrea. I relate to so much about what you're saying. Now, I don't have, I'm not a single mother. I don't have a child, but I wonder sometimes if it could be as simple as giving ourselves a little bit of grace
Mm.
and maybe not holding ourselves to such high standards. Maybe does that make sense?
Yeah, that's for good for everybody else, Maddox, but not. No, just kidding.
I mean, just to do what you can do and be okay with the part that you can't do.
Yes, that is so true. And I have been trying to practice that.
Oh,
The
I would like to offer, I mean, that is some choice Stoic wisdom, but I also see the solution as lying inside of building a soul-aligned community.
Mhm.
There are resources that you can tap, and as you build your community, you can reach into that library of those who have excess to give in the way of time, in the way of their knowledge, in the way of their talents. And the more you put into it, the more you'll be able to get out of it. It can seem never ending.
It's very true. Yeah. And
Yeah.
there are seasons where I can give, and then there are seasons that you need to take.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Boy, say that again, please.
The seasons where you give, and then there are seasons that you take, and sometimes you're the friend who is strong, and you have the shoulder to cry on, and sometimes you're the friend who needs a shoulder to cry on.
It definitely needs to be a two-way street. There are too many one-way streets in life.
Yes, I wholeheartedly agree.
Andrea, this has been absolutely amazing. I've so enjoyed. I had a million more questions, but
We can do a part two at another time.
Sounds
absolutely.
great.
Thank you so much for giving us an hour of your time today. This was completely delightful.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me, and I'm so glad that you're doing this and putting out, the heart of the art out into the world. And I'm
What happened?
She just went away.